Wow, y'all, it is weird to be back. This is the first of many. I'm basically creating a podcast. So I just wanted to get everybody in here. I will be interviewing only one person. So if you guys want to, share out the live and start tapping that screen, that would be really, really good. I have to maybe do the same thing because I do have to share it with the person I am interviewing. But this is the start of a political podcast, and we are interviewing about Iran. Obviously, that is the big, topic as of right now. So we're going to be talking about Iran with a vet who I trust very dearly. He is a dear friend. His name is Izzy. And you should all know him on these TikTok streets. But either way, just start tapping that screen as y'all come in the door. This is a podcast called Safe After Dark. And we are basically going to be experiencing everything that we can in regards to what Izzy thinks about the current topic at hand, which is Iran, and the potential of the consequences of Donald Trump's actions in regards to the war in Iran, and all of those things. So 2 people in the room, 4 people in the room. As the room starts building, just know this is a single person interview. There will be no request. There will be no talking on panel. That is usually what I do, but this is the beginning of a podcast called Safe After Dark. And we will see what we see in regards to getting more people in here to, join the discussion. But this will be the beginning of, a long-standing podcast that I do with random members in our community, plus maybe some political people, to eventually get to more politicians and things like that, as we discuss what's going on in our world and what we are doing for everything in regards to this. So this has been planned for a little bit. Enjoy the show. It's just going to be as long as we want, but we are going to talk about Iran and see what we see. Izzy, go ahead and request up, and we can start the podcast going right now. Hold on, just got to accept his request. What's up, my man? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sweet.
Okay, so I've been kind of thinking about where we would start with this. And let's just start with the idea of Donald Trump violating the Constitution. What is your position behind that, and any thoughts behind precedent that he's ignored, or things like that?
Yeah, so the War Powers Act of 1973, or the War Powers Resolution, is typically where we go to look at, hey, what is a president allowed to do as far as declaring war without, or taking military action without the approval of Congress. And none of the Iran did not meet any of the stipulations of that. Specifically, what people try to target is, oh well, hey, they were an imminent threat. Reality of it is that they weren't, right? What they had stated was that if we got involved, then they would take action. They weren't posing an imminent threat. They were just saying, hey, don't fuck with us. We won't fuck with you. That's the end of it.
Well, and I mean, with the idea that Congress is supposed to declare war. So, I mean, obviously we did missile strikes, but with the leader saying, "Hey, if you start it, we will finish it."
Yeah.
How How can Donald Trump deny all these how can Donald Trump deny all these precedents with congressional approval needing to, you know, declare war and all of that stuff and still get away?
So I would say the way that, because of the fact that Mike Johnson essentially just lets him get away with whatever the fuck he wants to get away with, it helps tremendously. I can't remember who the Senate Majority Leader is at this moment, but essentially in the same camp, right? If neither chamber of Congress is going to hold him accountable, then everything is permissible.
So basically, like, he can declare war because they essentially are basically just allowing it, like, as if they were declaring war themselves.
I don't foresee him officially declaring war. And the main reason I say this is because the United States has not been in an official declared state of war since like 1945. Everything else has been either peacekeeping mission, conflict resolution is, I think, what we officially designated Vietnam and Korea as. So we've skirted around officially declaring war for what, 80 years now.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and the last time that, like, we even had an event, in history was 9/11. So, like, I mean, all these precedents are being ignored, and his presidential authority is starting to stretch way farther than it should. And I guess, like, now that AOC has of impeachment, what is the likelihood that you think that impeachment could happen?
Give me 2 seconds to check on some numbers real quick.
Okay, sounds good. And chat, again, this is a political podcast. Please tap that screen. Let's try to get up to 10,000 likes as soon as possible. So that way we can, get this out in the algorithm and see what we see. Thank you for all my friends who are here currently right now, joining in on this political podcast that I am creating. All of this will be posted to my YouTube and my Blue Sky as well. I'm going to start clipping this interview after the live is over, and it will be posted to the Safe Space, obviously, main profile. And then also, like I said, my YouTube and Blue Sky. I will be posting the link for my YouTube after the live if for some reason you come in halfway or whatever. So just know that this is the beginning, and there will be more interviews to come.
So I'll be honest, I don't foresee this happening, because in order for articles of impeachment to go through, as far as like from the House side of things, right? We would need all of the Democrats to vote yes on it, and then we would also need 75. No, yeah, 75. 75 members from the Republican side to also flip. And that would just be to get him to in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Yep. So the likelihood of impeachment is very small, obviously, and so the reason I presented this is because what do we do as the people to advocate for us not to, like, move towards something like World War III?
I heard it earlier today. We really need to put pressure on our representatives, right? Especially like if you're in a red district, put pressure on your representative. Say, hey, do this. If not, we're just going to bring you up on primary. the biggest thing that so many of the career politicians are afraid of is getting primaried. So make it a reality.
Yep. And as far as districts and things, what does midterms look like due to Donald Trump making a decision like this? In your opinion?
I One of the big things that we heard a lot of going into the elections and even following the elections was no new wars, right? Guys, we're heading to a new war. There's no other way of saying it, right? So I definitely see a large portion of the base saying, hey, you know what? A large portion of the base saying, hey, you know what? No, we're not going to continue down with we're not going to continue with representatives and senators who refuse to hold Donald Trump accountable as the United States population.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing too. Yeah. I mean, and another thing too with the entire population. I mean, we've already seen, with decisions that he's made in the past, like, 120 days, that people are already flipping and already seeing the consequences of the actions, and how it affects them. So, would you say that this is swaying the country into a different direction, or would you say that we could see more of the same?
I don't know if I would say necessarily a different direction. I think more than anything, we're going to see seats either flipping or people being primaried is going to be the big thing that we see.
I mean, this is the first time that like we have been in a conflict like this in a very long time. Like, I mean, yes, drone strikes, sure, things like that. But with all of the other nations involved in this situation, would you say that World War III is possible?
It's the posturing makes it look that way, right? Um, we have obviously we're with Israel. Our government is with Israel, I should say. Um, so you have the nations that are backing Israel. You have the nations that are backing Iran. Um, this is the posturing for another world war.
Do you think that NATO gets involved?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look more into Article 5 because, from my understanding, from like this would be specific to Article 5 of the NATO agreements. I don't know the rest of it as well as I would like to, but specific to that, I believe it is if you are attacked. In this specific instance, we are the aggressor, and this is something that's very unique, at least over the last century, right? Going back to World War One, every conflict that we have been involved in, we were either attacked first or we were there to intervene, essentially on behalf of another nation.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so without NATO, do you think that we see attacks on United States soil?
I I wouldn't be surprised. I believe the State Department. I remember Martina reading this off earlier. State Department has released essentially like a caution for all United States citizens of the potential for Iranian sleeper cell agents to be activated because of what happened.
And then there's another point. Obviously Iran's leader basically said, "Hey, um, we will finish this." So, hey, um, we will finish this. So, looking at it like further, we got the Suez Canal, up for like, raising gas prices and commodities, that they could potentially attack overseas. Um,
So real
and
quick, it's not the Suez Canal that we're worried about. It's the Strait of Hormuz.
that's what I meant. Sorry, I didn't mean sorry. Yes, that's what I meant. My bad. But yeah, with that specifically, what does that look like for commodities in the U.S.?
We can definitely expect to see an increase in our gas prices. I believe the price of a gallon of oil, or sorry, not a gallon, a barrel of oil shot up to like $100 per barrel, um, which is pretty fucking significant, right? So expect to see those increase. Basically, anything increase. Basically, anything that comes out of the Middle East that is within the Persian Gulf, expect to see anything that moves through the Persian Gulf. Expect to see it increase.
Here, I mean, what does that look like for other things that we need for oil? That's not necessarily gas.
Anything petroleum
Plastic.
based, right? So like we're
Yeah.
looking at plastics. We're looking at like petroleum jelly. Um, every there are so many things that are oil based. Expect to see quite a few things increase in price because I believe it's 25% of the world's oil is about to be is about to be halted.
And the realism of this happening, would you say that they're going to pull the trigger pretty much right away?
Oh, Iran's already come out and stated that they're about to block it.
That makes sense. And then also with them blocking it, what does that look like for the average American as far as like living wage and things like that, in your opinion?
I think we're going it for Middle America. We're about to get railed. We're about to get railed here, like realistically speaking.
Yeah, I mean, God. Okay, so real quick, before we continue, 15 people in the live. I'm gonna need you to tap that screen. Let's try to get up to 10K. Let's. I'm setting a goal right now to try to get there in the next 15 minutes. We will be talking about this for a good, hour or so, if not longer. We'll go as long as it takes to get through all of what we're like discussing here. But I do need shares to go out. I do need likes. I do need things like that. Again, this is the beginning of my political podcast, and it is called Safe After Dark. And we will be posting it to the YouTube. I will also be giving any clips and things like that to Izzy, so he can post on his own profile. He does have access to my live, so you will be able to see any of this afterwards. The full interview, the full scope of what we are talking about. And just know there are more interviews to come. So again, 10K guys, let's try to push. Okay, so Izzy, what would attacking bases overseas do to our military involvement in other places?
Um, I think a large part of it's going to be disruption, right? I've stated this on numerous occasions. The biggest advantage that our military has over anyone is our logistical and supply capabilities. So disrupting our bases in the like in CENTCOM or Central Command, which is the Middle East and like northern like parts of Northern Africa, um, disrupting how things work there, having to evacuate bases, having to clear equipment out of there. This is going to disrupt the flow of how everything works there, which is going to then impede our mobilization capabilities.
So being able to mobilize to, essentially be involved in other places, what would that do to A, the world, and B, maybe the world's economy and things like that?
As far as the world, it's a little bit hard to say. I know like one of our primary reasons for maintaining stuff there is overwatch of oil fields, specifically like in the Arabian Peninsula. Also, like overwatch of the Suez Canal, right? We have a significant force over there in Egypt, um, that their primary job is protecting the Suez Canal, making sure that everything runs smoothly. Um, so that's going to be affecting trade routes a lot. Uh, that's the biggest thing that I see as far as like the economy. Um, as far as like a global impact, I think this is just my personal opinion, right? I
Yes.
don't know if it's going to impact like global efforts, but it will definitely impact our interests and the bottom lines of a lot of the CEOs here, right? Which I personally don't give a fuck about the CEOs, but it is going to impact the American consumer.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that it affects corporations enough to make them, reconsider backing someone like Trump?
I could definitely see it. Um, but the other side of it is they're going to have to admit that they were wrong.
Which billionaires and things don't like to do.
Well, men
So
as a whole don't like to do so.
that's fair. Okay, so and as far as global impact too, Russia's involvement, Putin saying specifically that he could negotiate a deal with Iran for nuclear capability and end this conflict right now. How realistic do you think Putin is with backing either BRICS or the United States?
It's shaky at best, right? It would be shaky at best, right? It would be if an agreement is reached with Putin. I foresee it being something similar to us teaming up with the USSR during World War II, if they were to back like NATO and the US. But I would see them backing BRICS more than they would back us.
I mean, and this is pure, purely a hypothetical, but with Trump kind of, showing enthusiasm towards Putin and things like that, um, how active do you think that relationship is going towards Trump and Putin at the current moment, and what is deciding Israel and Iran's fate?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me again?
Yeah, sure. So with Trump showing enthusiasm towards Putin, how active do you think he is with negotiations and things with Putin in regards to what is going on in Israel and Iran?
I don't know if it will be much of a negotiation with Putin. The main reason I say that is Trump has this really bad habit when it comes to Putin of just kind of giving him whatever the fuck he wants.
Yes.
Um, so that's just the way that I kind of read it. Is he kowtows to dictators because he wants to be a dictator.
And this is also kind of more of a hypothetical question. What is the potential of the United States joining something like BRICS?
What is the what?
The potential of the United States joining something like BRICS. If Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, don't you think that he would want to negotiate with BRICS, not NATO?
So BRICS was made specifically to go against the United States. So an invitation from BRICS is next to impossible
Okay.
for us to have. I personally don't have anything against BRICS, right? It is them trying to set themselves like get themselves off of the American dollar standard. Um, and I understand it, right? Because these are countries that have been negatively impacted by the United States for quite a while. So I can understand why it was developed in the first place.
Completely makes sense to me. That's kind of my thoughts. I mean, like, I don't think the United States joins BRICS or anything. That's not. I was just more wondering hypothetical negotiation tactics, considering that during his first term, he, like, did things with, um, you know, facilitating dictators. So that's what I'm wondering with this is with him going against all the dictators that he seemed to be facilitating relationships during his first term. I mean, how much sense does this make towards Donald Trump's trajectory as like president and leader and things like that? In the sense of like he seems to be just pissing off everybody now for no reason.
I
And
mean, that's
what is the consequence of that? You know, like what are we gonna see as far as like NATO and BRICS and with China saying that they would have like active boots on the ground and the United States potentially starting a world conflict that we might not be able to escape for years to come, as far as a global scale. Like what does this mean? Is the United States fully going into isolationism to the point where the United States is alone?
in order for us to fully go into isolationism, we would have to not be involved in Iran at all, right? Um, that's that like isolationism means that we are completely cut off from everyone in every regard. So to Trump says that he wants isolationism. He doesn't want isolationism. He just wants to be a bully.
I mean, bully for what though? What does Trump gain from this?
In his mind, it makes him look strong, and in the minds of the people who are a part of the MAGA cult, like these are people that I was speaking with last night, right? They were like, "Oh, America is back. We look so strong doing this. This is a projection of strength." When the reality is that the projection of strength would be for us to just not be fucking involved in this to begin with.
Right. And with and this is something that I like want to bring up too with
You're really muffled, man.
sorry, with Trump wanting to cause, you know, like I mean, he basically gave Iran the nuclear capability in the first place. So I guess
Right.
I'm also confused by his action here, considering that he is the one that put all of this in motion in the first place.
Well, and so we need to look at like what Tulsi Gabbard said, right? I don't necessarily like Tulsi Gabbard, but when she stated, "Hey, they're not anywhere close to like having a nuclear bomb, right, or nuclear weapons," um, they're every report that we have of their uranium enrichment, it's at 60% purity. You need 90% to be able to make like a clean weapon. I believe 80% you can make a dirty weapon. So it's close to the threshold, but it's not at the threshold, right? Um, and sure, you can make the speculation of, oh well, why would they have this much stuff or this much uranium stockpiled if they're not intending to make a weapon for it with it? We need to also look at why do countries stockpile nuclear weapons? Well, it's so that nuclear powers can't come in and bully them, right? Like what we're doing right now. It acts as a deterrent of, hey, we don't want to invade you because we don't want to be hit by those nukes.
And I mean, do we do we believe, and this is pure your opinion, if Iran had the capability of nuclear power, would that be the worst thing in the world, or would it be something that like we could handle as a world?
I personally don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. I don't want anyone to really have nuclear weapons. I would be like, this is just like pure perfect world here, right? Everyone just denuclearizes as far as from a weapon standpoint and moves forward towards trying to go towards like clean nuclear energy, right? I would much prefer that.
Disagree with you. I would prefer no nukes as well, but I mean, in a world like where pressing the big red button is a thing that was one of MAGA's biggest concerns. So like how can they justify so like how can they justify this? Obviously they are, but like how can they justify this and still keep the base that they have? Like how sorry, let me rephrase. how do we stop them in something like midterms to, make sure that their message gets stopped here, so that way we start moving towards like getting, these corrupt politicians out of office, with MAGA's narrative obviously backing Donald Trump with every sense of the word, when one of the main arguments that I heard during the election was, hey, if we press the big red button, that's going to, cause, all of this, with all of the conflict in the world to, just blow each other up. And Donald Trump had no new wars. So I guess what I'm really just trying to ask you is, how far away from nuclear war are we with something like some conflict like this?
Um, the last time I saw, I think like, and this is going based off like the doomsday clock, right? I believe the
Yeah.
doomsday clock was like only 30 seconds to midnight, so we're not far off from it based off of how tensions are currently. Um, as far as justification for it, let's be real, it's a fucking cult. They're going to justify it no matter what because Supreme Leader is infallible.
How do we break that mindset with the conservatives?
I don't know. Um,
Neither. I guess if we figured that out, we wouldn't be having all these debates and stuff. But I mean, going forward, knowing what we know, based on like us being in active conflict, is there any way to change the narrative to facilitate that? Hey, we need to be scared right now. Conservatives, you need to toe the party line here and vote Democrat. In your opinion, how would you do that?
I don't know that there's anything we can do that will do it, right? Once they start seeing a draft, they might be changing their tune, right? Because we also have to look at it from the perspective of, okay, we just lost 15,000 service members, many of whom are senior leaders within the military. Simply for a new conflict, we are essentially a division size element weaker throughout the entirety of our military. Um, so now we have to start looking at, okay, well, what is, how do we get enough people to come in, because our recruitment quotas would not suffice to um to replenish that within like even 2 fiscal years.
Yep.
um so we would realistically be looking at, should this come to full conflict, and not just like running airstrikes, it would end up becoming a draft. And that's one of like that's a big reason why Johnson was only a single term president, is because of the fact that there was a draft initiated and people didn't want their friends and didn't want their kids going over to Vietnam and unaliving in another country for what?
And then, yeah, with facilitation of something like the draft, how likely do you think the United States puts boots on the ground?
I've been hearing mixed I've been hearing mixed opinions on that from people that I know that are still actively serving. Um, I know that there are units that are currently on standby for something like that. We I've also heard that the likelihood of us actually putting boots on ground is not high. But the the issue that I have with people who are saying, "Oh, hey, the likelihood or the assumption of what previous presidents would have done, what sane presidents would have done, and what a good Secretary of Defense would have done." Right, someone like General Mattis or uh, uh, fuck. Why am I blanking on Biden's Lloyd Austin? Um, like there were a number of secretaries of defense that we've had that would not have done something like that would not have endorsed something like this, that would not be pushing for, hey, let's go ahead and mobilize our units over to Iran because our president's throwing a fucking temper tantrum because no one came to his birthday party.
And yeah, with speaking of his birthday party, what about that? Like with the loyalism and the people that he invited, how likely do you think supremacy is with someone like Donald Trump? Like supremacy of the military?
I don't think it's likely, and the reason I say it's not likely is, um, what I saw from the military, like from the service members who were on that, who were in those lines marching in rank and file, right? Um, they would have known about this. They would have gotten notice about this probably back in like for this big show and spectacle, right? And everything that I saw from the military, like from the Miltalk creators who were filming the practices and doing that type of stuff, the reports of it were that that was some of the crispest fucking marching, the best DNC that they've ever seen. And then what we see on the actual strip is you see soldiers who are out of step. You see soldiers who are out of step. You see soldiers who just are they're just casually walking. They're not marching. That was an order that was given, right? Uh, they were given a specific command of route step march, which means that you just walk at pace and keep a general box shape. Um, you also have the fact that there was, so whenever a formation passes by, like say a general, right? The entire formation doesn't salute; just the single person in charge of that formation salutes. Um, Someone rendered a salute to Donald Trump with his left hand. That is an active choice that was made. So there were people doing as the leaders of these formations. It was an active protest.
That makes sense. So, meaning that enough of the military understands what Donald Trump is doing with supremacy, that they're
Well,
going to actively go against, or is it more just the fact that he doesn't have enough of the military to declare supremacy? And another one more, just and you can answer these questions as slow as possible, and I can re-ask if you forget one, but. Um, Essentially, like, can he install the loyalism he needs to move supremacy more in the Republican direction?
so it's less that he doesn't have the numbers and more so that the people who are at the top won't, right? Um, the people who are at the top of the military currently, these are people who served throughout the majority, if not the entirety, of the global war on terrorism, or GWAT. And so these are people who they don't like bureaucracy. Uh, these are people whose entire careers were literally stacking bodies. Um, and they don't take too kindly to someone who's never had any skin in the game trying to push them around and dictate what they need to do, and saying, "Oh, hey, because of the fact that I am the president, I know better." And they're just like, "No, you fucking don't." Um, and so, in order for him to be able to gain supremacy, he would have to get rid of a lot of senior leadership, like a very significant portion of senior leadership, who won't be loyalists, right? Uh, and then in addition to that, like now you have a vacuum of senior leadership. Okay, well now you're having to promote a lot of people up to these higher ranks who they might be loyalists, but they might also be coming from a place where they don't know what it's like at that level on how to lead from that level, right? They would have been at a significantly lower level. Like let's say if you took like a battalion commander, right, who's in charge of like we'll say 1,200 soldiers, right, and now you're moving that battalion commander up to a level of being in charge of a division or a command or one of the corps, right? You're now going from 1,200 soldiers at like typically on average the most 1,200 soldiers. Now you're being in charge of anywhere from 15,000 to into like six-figure range, right? That level of that 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 significant of a jump of like structural change, they're not going to be very well prepared for, and we're actually going to see the might of our military become weaker.
That's fair. And I do have another question, but just real quick PSA, y'all. We have 15 people in this room. This is the beginning of my political podcast. If you guys want to start tapping that screen, let's try to get. If you guys want to start tapping that screen, let's try to get to 10K within the next like 5-10 minutes. We've been here for a bit. We are trying to push this live out to as many people as we can. This is a very important topic in our world right now, obviously, with what's going on overseas. We are talking with Izzy, who will be a frequent member of this podcast. But this is the beginning of my political podcast. And showing support through just taps is all I'm asking for. I don't need gifts. I don't need subscribers. I just need taps because people need to know this information. So try to get us to 10K in the next, 5-10 minutes. Lounge, listen to the interview as we keep discussing about this crazy shit that is going on in our world. But yeah, so my question is okay, so I'm gonna bring it back to history real quick. Schittler, he essentially got rid of his political adversaries through sending them all to, sending them all to the first concentration camp, which is Dachau. How likelihood with stuff like CCOT going on in the world and things like that, how likely do you think that could happen with our political leaders and our military members that oppose him?
I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility, but something that I think we need to take into account is how how connected the world is, how recorded the world is today as opposed to what it was 90 years ago, right? Everyone has a camera in their pocket. Um, you see videos of cops doing shitty cop things all the fucking time today, right? You see videos of just the most random shit that 70 years ago never would have been caught on camera because cameras weren't constantly rolling. But we are in a society today where that's no longer the case, right? We don't have, or the government doesn't have that luxury of not being recorded anymore.
And with something like the United States, Hitler had state control in regards to like you know inserting his military will on everybody, with 27 to 30 states backing him. How likelihood do you think this could hit state control as far as supremacy and things of that nature in regards to backing a military structure and things like that?
So I know that Trump has put out that he wants to have like the essentially the national guards of the red states to invade into the blue states. Um, the issue that you're going to run into is that would essentially start a civil war, um, and that would just it would significantly weaken the the um, the the strength with of like the federal government as a whole having to fight a war against ourselves on our own soil, right? And another thing to keep into consideration that a lot of the blue states, that's where a lot of our bases are. We
Yeah,
have a, not only is that a lot where a lot of our bases are, but that's also where significant portions of our population lie.
I don't disagree with you. I only ask just because that has been floated in the waves. But back to Iran. With China, you know, I want to bring it to China now. With China saying that they're willing to back Iran, what is the likelihood of a China unite?
I don't foresee us go. I don't foresee China going into a direct conflict with us. Right, it would be something similar to a proxy war, um, something more akin to what we saw during the Cold War. Right, where they're going to be backing Iran financially, they're going to be backing Iran with military equipment and weapons. Um, and they might be sending in their soft units, but I don't see them like sending in their entire military.
I mean, but what you saw in proxy war during the Cold War was stuff like the Korean War, where demilitarized zones were created, dividing, North Korea and South Korea, and obviously Vietnam. So do you see any active conflicts like that happening, like on a more realistic, where boots are actually on the ground for the United States?
I could definitely see that, but I don't foresee China being directly involved. Right, it will be very indirectly.
Fair enough. And then another, you know, question that I have, just with kind of BRICS involvement and things like that. What do you think Africa play? We mentioned Egypt earlier on in the interview, but how do you think Africa plays a part in this conflict, especially with what's going on in Israel with Palestinians and things?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know enough about Africa to be able to speak much on it.
Fair enough. Then we'll move on. And another question I have is: do you think Israel escalates in sending their own active military into Iran?
I I wouldn't put it past them. Military or not military. Israel has historically kind of been an aggressor within that region of the world. So
And what do you think that does to our involvement as an ally for Israel? Do you think it strengthens it or weakens it, or do you think there's a line that if they cross, that it would essentially be, you know, the final standpoint where we are involved in active conflict with Iran and Israel?
I think that Trump is Netanyahu's bottom and is just going to say yes, daddy, to whatever he wants.
Okay. So as long as Trump is leader, Israel will always be protected.
Essentially, yeah, because Netanyahu is a racist. He is a Zionist, right? Trump is going to go along with someone who is also a racist. Netanyahu has thrown Israel and Palestine into an apartheid state. Trump is going to support an apartheid state.
Okay. That's wonderful. Okay, so how much worse does it get for our involvement in Iran as far as what I'm kind of dancing around the question. Really, what I'm trying to ask you is how does this escalate on our side?
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what we see in the coming months from Iran as far as response. Um, that I think that's going to be the big deciding factor is what does Iran's response look like, and then how do we counteract that response?
But I think they've made that pretty clear on like kind of what they want to do. They want to finish the job.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and like there was no job that they had started with us for them to finish, right? But it's the idea of I'm not going to throw the first punch, but I'm definitely going to throw the last one. Um, I at this point, like obviously we can't turn back time and say, hey, we're not going to do that, right? But what we can do is the what I think the smart thing to do would be is try to get Iran to a negotiation table. See if we can get some type of settlement in there. And uh as long as Trump does not try to renege on it, we'll be fine.
Well, okay, I'm gonna kind of pivot back to history again. We saw with the Budapest Memorandum
Mm-hmm.
that like deconstruction of nukes, we would have allyship both on Russia and the United States side. Um and we saw how well that turned out. Um and Trump used that in regards to basically saying that we should ignore our agreements. So what agreement could we possibly come to in this situation?
I think that's going to come a lot to whether or not Trump's cabinet will actually hold him accountable. Um, we saw Tulsi Gabbard attempt to when she was like when she very blatantly said, "Hey, Iran does not have this program up and running right now," right? And Trump basically just said, "Hey, I don't give two shits what she said. I'm just gonna do what the fuck that I want." So it's going to come to like Hegseth and Vance and Rubio coming and saying, "Hey, we do need to honor this. We literally just signed this. We cannot go back on it and look like Russia."
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It looks like, just based on what Hegseth has already said, it looks like they're in two completely different places with how they see it, So I don't necessarily have all the confidence in the world that they can hold him accountable, because the whole reason he appointed his cabinet this time was for just straight up loyalism and to not be able to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, like Hegseth is too inebriated majority of the time to really fight back. So there's that side of it. Um,
I
I
mean,
think
sure.
I think
uh,
most likely, if anyone's going to kind of stand up, because whenever something I noticed when Trump was giving his speech about Iran was JD Vance's face. He was not happy about what was happening. So I could see potentially Vance invoking the 25th Amendment and getting Trump removed from office based on that.
I mean, if he does that, I mean, do we? What does a JD Vance agreement look like? I never thought I would even hear those words come out of my mouth.
I I don't know. That is an unknown that I'm scared of, but also I don't want to say can it get worse because it definitely can get worse. Um, but in this specific regard, I think that Vance would be better in this very specific instance, not in everything, just in this one thing. I want to make that very clear for the people listening in.
I also want to say that's kind of how I felt about the Supreme Court during Trump's presidency. Is I felt like they are not for fascism, but I mean, obviously the human rights stuff, like they're all for. So, I mean, that is what it is. But I don't think anybody wants Trump to have the supremacy that other people want him to have. So I don't disagree with your premise there.
Well,
Uh,
and I'll
Go
say
ahead.
that like this is me putting my tinfoil hat on for a minute. Um, the Heritage Foundation doesn't want Trump. They don't. He's too much of a loose cannon, which is why Vance specifically was chosen as the vice president. So they were always the plan was always for Trump to get ousted from office at some point, and then for Vance to take over. this is my tinfoil hat moment. Don't quote me on this. I have nothing to like fully solidify this as concrete fact. I want to make that very clear. Fact. I want to make that very clear. Safe. Ladies and gentlemen, while we wait for Safe to get back, there's 17 people in here. If I could have you guys tippy tap that screen and get us up to 10,000 likes really quick, that would be absolutely fucking fantastic. Um, let's see if we can get those likes moving. I know that y'all have at least like one hand free, so just at the very least, use the single thumb that you have available. Um, get those likes moving up, and let's share this live out as well. Hector, I'm not getting any lag. I just don't see Safe at all. On my side of it, it says live pause. Creator will be back soon.
I am so sorry. My phone died. I'm back. Izzy, I hope you're still there. Otherwise, I'm just going to quickly invite him so we can finish up. Hope you're still there. Otherwise, I'm just going to quickly invite him so we can finish up. I apologize. My phone died. And it was plugged in, so that's why I didn't even look. So, that was my bad. Let us continue, guys. Tap that screen. Let's continue, guys. Tap that screen. Let's get people back in here. Hold on. Let me just quickly share the live, Izzy, just so I can let everybody know I'm back. And then we will continue.
I was very scared. Didn't know what to do.
I know. Hey, like first podcast, whatever. Like we're just trying to like, actively get our shit together here too, with charging phones and things. But it doesn't matter either way. We are back, and I just want to everybody to keep tapping that screen. Let's get people back in here. We are at 7.7K. Let's push to 10 to 12K within the next 10 minutes. But anyway, Izzy, we were talking about JD Vance.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I genuinely just think that the whole plan is for Vance to take over, right? Whether that's I foresee JD Vance taking the presidency uh no later than like I'll say May of 2027. Safe, I swear to God. You need a God damn it. All right. Sorry guys. I think that Safe's phone died again. Um so we'll see how this goes. Worst case, I'll get with him after this, and we'll continue this hopefully tomorrow. That would be ideal. Yeah. Charging the phone is uh you know one of the important things for this. It's okay though. I'm not terribly stressed about it. Um, and hopefully this is resolved soon.
Guys, I hate I hate technical difficulties. If my phone dies again, I mean, I'm sorry. But I think I fixed it. Um and you know how like when you get like that 1% thing and you're just like fuck, well that's what happened to me. So I'm gonna get Izzy back up here. I'll get my green screen back up. Hold on 1 second. What happened to me? So I'm gonna get Izzy back up here. I'll get my green screen back up. um just hold on, Izzy. Put my green screen back up. Hold on just 2 secs. What the fuck? Hold on. Okay, well, we'll finish the podcast strong. Six people, thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you. I wouldn't have necessarily stuck around. So like, I just appreciate the love there for sticking around for the people that have. I am gonna quickly share out the live, just to let everybody know that we are back. And it looks like I fixed the issue. So, Izzy, we were talking about JD Vance. Um, Essentially, without impeachment, how could JD Vance like invoke the 25th Amendment?
Well, so the 25th Amendment exists like it's not quite a workaround impeachment, but that's kind of what it is, right? Give me 2 seconds. My computer decided to restart on me. Um, but the um, so there is um, so there is Um, so in Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, it says whenever the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker and of the House of Representatives a written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. So it is kind of a workaround of it, but it would be the it would have to be a majority of the cabinet as well as JD Vance to come forth and be like, hey, he has lost faith of the he has lost the faith of the officers within the executive branch as well as the faith of the people to be able to faithfully and dutifully carry forth the office of the presidency.
I mean, but if the 25th Amendment has been like was truly invoked, I mean, wouldn't you need significant, substantial like evidence? And yes, Donald Trump has all of it. Like we know that he ignores precedent, all of that stuff. But with the MAGA loyalism within our government, do you think his claim would be strong enough for something like that?
I think something to keep in mind is that the loyalism isn't necessarily to MAGA, so much as MAGA is just kind of like the figurehead of or like the mask, the face of the Heritage Foundation, right? JD Vance is the Heritage Foundation.
I know that. I
And
just
so
meant like his claim, I mean, to be president. Like, I mean, we even like played around with the theory that they would and he would get the presidency that way he had 10 years.
yeah,
But I mean, do you think this is all, and this is just my tinfoil hat time. Do you think this is all just staged? Like all just staged, like in a
I
really horrendous way?
I don't think so. I think that this is something that truly caught a lot of people off guard of him making this decision. Um, like I think that the idea had been tossed around a little bit, but I don't know that it was ever like something that was necessarily seriously taken. And so them kind of seeing, oh hey, he actually did this. Um, it might be like a little bit of a wake up call to the Heritage Foundation of like, hey, we might have to go forward with the plan a little bit sooner than possible, or sooner than initially thought.
That's what I don't understand, though. I mean, with New York, having the criminal cases, with the idea that, he would instantly go to prison if he lost the presidency, what does Donald Trump have to gain from making a decision like this? What does Donald Trump have to gain from making a decision like this?
Um, Again, I think the biggest thing that he gained was in his mind, it makes him look like a strong leader, right? Um, uh, Adolf often said that he wanted to be the modern day Napoleon. Napoleon said that he wanted to be the Alexander the Great of the West. Um, while Trump hasn't outright said it, that's exactly what he wants to be. He wants to be that level of a figurehead within the government as the president, right? He wants to be the next Adolf. He wants to be by waging war and going on conquest. Um, and so that's what he's doing here. And so that's what he's doing here with a nation that, by and large, is viewed as an adversary to a lot of the world because of the way that their government is.
That completely makes sense to me too, but like this reminds me of like, and this is this is weird because like history is just like repeating itself in like every single aspect of the word proxy war. Like this reminds me of when Hitler made the decision to split his focus into a two front war, one with Russia and one with the U.S. And when he did that, I mean, that was his biggest mistake in the war. So I just like, why do these fascists think that they got to be God? I don't know. I think the God
They,
complex is where their biggest mistakes happen.
right, and I mean that's something that like we can boil it down to something as simple as just narcissistic personality disorder, right? They believe that they are God's gift to mankind, and so that's where we're seeing a lot of this.
Do you think we recover? Like, do you think, I mean, let me ask you this. Post a Donald Trump presidency, do you think there is, a way that we can pull ourselves out of this shit?
It will take several decades. It will be within our lifetime, but it will be a very long time that it takes for us to recover from this, right? Um, we're not we're not the good guys here.
So,
And to be perfectly clear here, there are very few times in the world in world history where we as the United States are the good guys, like looking at it objectively through the lens of history. Um, but this is something where in the current state, in the current view of us from other countries and other world leaders, we are not the good guys.
I also want to just point out, I also want to just point out, for relevancy, like 7 people in the chat, pay attention because this is where the civil rights movement too has to happen. This is where we have to wake the fuck up and like be done. Because like if this isn't bad enough for you to where every country on the planet is affected by the decision that Donald Trump just made, you need to like actually start being concerned because I mean Izzy just said it would take several decades to recover. And I agree with him. I literally asked him that question to see where his head was at with like how fast we can recover. Um, we are on, and if you don't wake up, we're going to fall completely into it. So, 8 people in the chat. I'm not saying that you are MAGA, but if there is MAGA or a conservative listening, pay a fucking attention, read some shit, and start getting involved. Anyway, Izzy, I just had to yell at my chat a little bit. Um, anyway, I just really want to point out that since we are this level of fucked, how do we reform a structure like this to make sure something like this doesn't happen again? As far as military codes and things, like to make sure he can't do this shit.
I think it would take. We would have to reshape a lot within the structure of our government. I think we would have to put some more stopgaps in there and like increase the strengths of checks and balances. Potentially giving the Justice Department, or not the Justice Department, the Judiciary branch, some type of like an enforcement agency, right? Because that's one of the big things that is more or less empowering what has been happening. Is the courts coming out and saying, "Hey, fucking stop that! You're not allowed to do that," and Trump saying, "Hey, fuck you! I don't care." They don't have anything to come in and be like, "Hey, no, you're actually going to stop this."
Okay, yeah, and but like this seems like a money move, right? Like there's money behind this somehow. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I was trying to lead into a little bit too. Is how do you think this affects government contracting?
Mm, I I think government contracting maybe isn't the best place to go to, like as far as like money in politics. I think it goes a lot more into lobbyists. Like if we were talking about money in politics, lobbyists would be one of our big places to look at, as well as like political leaders being able to hold stock options, um, and that would essentially Congress would have to say, "Hey, yeah, we're not going to allow ourselves to get paid outside of our salary," which I don't foresee happening. We could, if we could get the state legislatures to get together, like, and we would have to get 2/3 of the states legislatures to get together and say, "Hey, we're going to hold a constitutional convention, and we're going to just kind of not redo the entirety of the Constitution, but we're going to make some significant changes in there to put stopgaps in there so that money doesn't influence politics as heavily as it currently does."
That's exactly what I'm talking about. What if a corporation made this move, not our government?
That it's very possible, right? I mean, that's kind of like that's essentially what happened in 2003 with Iraq, right? It was largely Halliburton, Raytheon, and Lockheed Martin that were involved with that. Like specifically their ties to Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's all I'm saying.
It absolutely has happened before. I haven't really been able to piece together like, okay, well, where who would benefit from this as far as like monetarily wise, even within the defense contracting realm of everything, right? Because the fact of the matter is that a lot of the companies have been making hand over fist, like money hand over fist, when with regard to Israel and with regard to Ukraine's conflicts.
I'm just under the impression that I don't think the government has anything to do with this decision. I agree. I think everybody in the government's kind of shocked about it. doesn't have loyalty to anybody, and he will do anything that benefits him. So that is where it comes to. What, and that's why I keep asking you, Izzy, and you, I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, we'll probably never know why, but I really want to know how this benefits him. And it's not,
Again,
I don't think it's because of he wants to perceive himself as a great leader. I think something was bought and paid for, and he made the decision because he had to.
so here's I the pushback I'm going to give here is like let's go back to 2003, right? When we look back there, what we saw was a uh, uh, we can call 9/11 a false flag to a degree, or a black flag operation, in the sense of we kind of let it happen, right? And what we saw following that was an overwhelming amount of support from Congress. And that's the key difference here. We're not seeing an overwhelming amount of support from Congress coming forth, which is why I genuinely do not think that this was necessarily a money tie thing. This was just a Trump being Trump thing.
That's what I'm saying, but I don't think it has anything to do with our government why he made this decision. Because I mean, yes, Iran's always been like the nuclear threat that's possibly going to get nukes, and blah blah
Well,
blah blah.
they've been saying they're 2 weeks out, or Israel specifically has been saying that they're 2 weeks out since '95.
Right.
If
That's
and
what I'm saying. This makes absolute no sense.
It's like the only other place that it would be tied to would be like Israel, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu, which would tie into money things because um, Israel is our number one customer, but that's about the extent of it. I still just don't see a place of like a corporation being directly involved for Trump making this decision.
I don't disagree with you. I said that's my tinfoil hat. So it really was just a thought like that's lingering in my brain that in this geopolitics situation, he makes a move that basically makes him over. Basically. Like he's over. Like there's no coming back from this. And I swear to God, MAGA is stupid, but if they can't see that this is fucking wild, then America should be doomed.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you there, but
Yeah. So I mean, that being said, tinfoil hat off. Um, where do we go from here as far as what we can do currently? Yes, you said put pressure on representatives. I agree with that. Obviously activism, protesting, and all of that good stuff. But there's got to be more. Like we have to actually do something about this. And yes, I don't mean war or violence. I'm a peace man. I don't do shit like that. But I even think that we should walk directly to fucking Washington D.C. and make these motherfuckers tell us why. Like they should tell us why. Or Mar-a-Lago or wherever the fuck he is. I want him to tell us fucking why. But I mean, where do we go from here, Izzy? We're in like we're pushing buttons that literally could mean the end of the United States.
I mean, yeah, but hey, we're at the end of the cycle for an empire, right? 250 years. That's all that we get. historically speaking. Um, so it also might just be our time. Like, um, we we're on the edge of the 250 years of being a major superpower or the major superpower. Um, I it's not. I wish I could say it's surprising. It's not surprising, right? Ever since Trump stepped into office, right? China has stepped up on the global stage as like, oh, hey, the United States is cutting U.S. aid off away from, or is cutting U.S. aid from the rest of the world. China is stepping in and doing what we used to do, right? As far as like humanitarian aid and stuff like that. Um, there's a lot of issues where the Trump administration as a whole has just systemically pulled us away from being the predominant superpower in the world, and that's kind of where we're at down today.
I don't disagree, but what do we form into?
Essentially, the new Britain.
Is democracy dead? Is he?
I don't think democracy is necessarily dead. I think that it is going to be very difficult to get back to where we were. It's going to take a lot of restructuring, right? Look, we can look at Germany, right? Germany, following the end of World War One and uh, oh gosh, Kaiser Wilhelm's fall out of power, they replaced the monarchy with democracy, and then that
Yeah.
immediately fell into fascism, right? And then
And you know how it
Ger-
happened? Like, and this is, I actually made a couple videos about this recently. And they put something in their constitution that essentially allowed the president to make decisions in emergency situations. Um, and that was poorly defined.
right,
So
um,
they put it in their own constitution to allow Hitler to do what he did. Sorry, Schiller to do what he did.
right, and again, I don't know if there's a provision that allows for that within the states, as far as like, oh, hey, we're in a time of like, obviously, we saw like FDR get 4 terms whenever we were actively in World War II, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then after that happened, we put in place the 22nd Amendment, stating that you cannot serve more than that you cannot serve more than 2 terms as a president.
Which was probably one of the smartest decisions we've ever fucking made, because even FDR at the end of his 4 terms that he had
Well, I mean, to
created
be fair,
internment camps. So
yeah, to be fair, he also unalived in like in his last one.
I mean, he all I'm saying is even the greatest leaders like FDR fell into bigotry.
Right. Well, and not excusing it, but that was also very much the time that he lived in. Right. Racism was rampant. It wasn't just around. It was the norm.
The height of the white supremacy movement was 19 like 30s. That was like the strongest time that it had in the United States. But kind of like going back to Schiller and the emergency powers thing, he's using Schiller's playbook. So he's trying to create an emergency. And Iran is that emergency.
Right. Well, because Iran, like I said earlier, Iran has sleeper agents here. We know that. We're aware of that. Um, so them uh, retaliating can uh, retaliating can be viewed as an emergency, right? That is a state emergency. Um, and that could be the thing that either allows him to retain supreme authority or essentially to be able to consolidate power, or it would allow for him to invoke martial law.
That's what he wants. That's what I'm saying. That is Trump's true intention. And that's what he wants to do.
Yeah,
And that is what he gains from it.
yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been trying to say this entire interview, but um I'm bad with words sometimes. Um because what he stands to gain from this is absolute centralized leadership in the federal government.
right. And like I definitely won't deny that he does have the potential to gain that. I just it's whether or not Congress allows it. Essentially, like will Congress grow a backbone, or at least a strong enough backbone to stand up and say, hey, we're not just going to hand over supreme control of the nation to you, um, because of something that you essentially caused. You know,
It absolutely seems like they've been
like I
quiet this pretty. I mean, they're pushing the big beautiful bill forward, Izzy.
right, and that's that's another thing to kind of look at is what's happening behind the scenes right now. Okay, well they're pushing for the big beautiful bill, um, through the voting stages as we're speaking right now. Right, they're trying to get this pushed forward in the dark of night while everyone's watching Iran instead.
Yes. And you know what else it does? It gives Russia complete access to finish the war with the Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've kind of given them carte blanche ability to do so, by withdrawing a lot of the support that we were once giving to Ukraine.
I know, but like it's just like now actively genociding more Palestinians, blowing up their entire land, and backing a country that is like in a war with Iran that's actively G-siding their own people. That's where we are. You're right, we are the villains.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it's a very uphill battle to even like contradict anything that he's doing right now. Like all the precedent in the world isn't going to save us if he's just going to ignore it all.
Right. And again, we just I hate to have to put faith in our systems, but right now I think that is kind of what we have to do is just kind of hope that that's what happens. Whether or not that is what happens is a completely different story, though.
Right. And what are we gonna do, Izzy, if it goes the other way? Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. But anyway, yeah, I think that's kind of like really the end. I mean, right now we're just kind of like waiting and seeing what happens. I would love to have you more on this podcast to talk about it as we go. But I did, since we are like doing pretty good on time, like we've only been live an hour and a half. I did want to talk to you about a few other things. So, I want to talk about California real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, what do you want in the states to actively control the military in those situations? And I mean, what are we the people supposed to do about that if he's basically using the military as Gestapo?
Well, so something to like it's not just precedent that he's ignoring. He's outright ignoring what is written into law, right? Specifically when it comes to the National Guard, um, and that is Title 10, Section 12406,
Yep,
where it states that in order for federalization of the National Guard to occur, the orders have to come from the governor of the state, right?
I know.
It cannot come from the president. Like the president can't just come in and say, "Hey, your militia group is now mine." it is now under my control because you are not doing what I want you to do. And so that's something that we kind of have to look at, as well as like what's happening with the Marine Corps. Um, it's not necessarily at the point of violating Posta Comitatus. It's close, right? He's absolutely bordering on it. Um, but um, uh, it is it's not quite there yet, right? Because what they're doing currently is they're protecting a federal building, which is within the realm of what they can do as far as authority wise goes. I don't know. I need to read a little bit more into Posta Comitatus to be able to say for sure whether or not they're allowed to place civilians under, like detain them and place them under arrest. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe that they do have that authority.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, blatantly violating the law. And I said precedent, I meant the law. Basically doing whatever he wants, proving that, like, he appears to have this supremacy and people are listening.
Right. Well, and a lot of that's also like we have to keep in mind that there's a lot of young military members who don't fully understand that they have the ability to, not just the ability to, but the the obligation to deny unlawful orders. So he's running based off of he's doing these things based off of that idea of a lot of young soldiers, a lot of young Marines. They're not aware of what their rights are when it comes to things like this, and they also just they don't know any better.
They don't know any better. Let's create more national security crisis because our Marines aren't educated on how they need to fucking challenge the shit out of the president.
It's not challenging their president because, like, yes, it is challenging the president. That's not for the date. That's not for your junior enlisted though. That's not for your lower ranking person to do. And the reason I say that is because the lower ranking person has absolutely zero authority anywhere. Their duty lies in challenging their officers and their NCOs, and it's on the senior enlisted and the senior officers, the senior leadership of whatever branch to challenge the president.
But they are challenging the president, Izzy.
They're giving pushback to the president, absolutely. But
And
they're
then him using LA to call a curfew. It's seeming pretty much like 1942.
yeah,
1942.
yeah. I'm not denying that. But like when with regards to Los Angeles specifically, they are absolutely towing the line of what is legally allowed. They have not yet crossed the line of what is legally allowed, as far as the Marine Corps units have not. With the National Guard units, what should have been done by the general of the commanding general of the California National Guard, what should have been done was to say, hey, no, I'm not going to allow any of my soldiers to go out there and do this shit. So,
And why didn't he?
didn't have he just he didn't have the backbone to, if he's looking at like a potential political career or anything like that. It was probably out of fear.
You said the word, Izzy. You said the word. Fear mongering is the reason. And that's what I'm saying. Donald Trump is acting like he's God. And I don't know what to do about it other than post this podcast and call him the fuck out for it. But I mean, by him ignoring the law, by people not having the backbone to stand up and say, "Hey, fuck you." Um, he's uh, he's being emboldened to be able to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why he made the decision for Iran too. Possibly. If he realized that he could use the military in this way, well, hey, let's use the military in this way too.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that, but I think using the military like in like domestic situations versus using the military in international situations, there are drastically different things that have to take place.
I mean, how? He's using them as Gestapo, is he? That's what he's doing. ICE in unmarked vehicles, National Guard, police.
I'm not denying that. Also, though, keep in mind that law enforcement agencies and military are different things.
Yeah, he's using them basically as a secret police.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's using ICE that way.
I couldn't even admit that to myself, Izzy. That we literally have a secret police like on the ground right now.
Yeah, they're hiding their face. They don't want their identities revealed for a reason. And people can say, "Oh, hey, they fear for the safety of themselves. They fear for the safety of their wives, or sorry, the safety of their families." But the reality of it is the if they were acting within the bounds of the law, then they wouldn't have to worry about it. If they were acting within the bounds of the Constitution, then ICE agents wouldn't have to worry about people like themselves getting doxxed.
Yeah, and he has like just like this force that literally is walking the streets and violating due process and doing all of the things that dictators do. Um and like if we think that it can't escalate from here, obviously we know it is, but like if we think that it can't escalate here from here to the point where midterms is coming, but what if it really isn't? What if he could actually gets martial law to stop elections entirely?
I don't know if he will. I'm hoping that he won't, obviously. But um, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that. Like that is something that, as much as I hate to say it, we will have to wait and see if martial law gets enacted. If it does, then an act of resistance, obviously, um, and we would have to fight that as a civilian populace. But which I do have hope with, right? The the No Kings protest on the 14th, right? We crossed the 3.5% threshold.
I know, and I'm not saying that like we're not fighting hard. I'm just saying that it's fucking scary. I mean, like this when I say that, and I don't say things lightly, Izzy. I'm Mr. Optimist. I'm the dude that's like, let's build a movement. I'm the dude that's like, let's use corporate lobbying against itself, following the actual rules of the system that they created. But if there's no system, how do you combat that?
I I don't necessarily have an answer for that. We haven't had to do that in the U.S. As far as we have had to do it in to a degree, right? That was like civil rights. That was the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War, stuff like that. But we as when I say that we haven't had to do that, I mean we haven't had to do that as far as for the entire population, right? Um, and I think that's kind of one of the that's one of the it's an unprecedented time, right?
It's absolutely the most unprecedented time that I've ever experienced. Like I live within rules, Izzy, and the rules change all the time with this man. Um, and like for example, when Kit like first told me about California, I froze a little bit. Like I was just like, because I usually like am pretty good at like being optimistic, being like, hey, it's only 4 years. He hasn't passed any true legislation. You know, like we're here to, um, just wait this 4 years. Yeah, it's gonna suck. Yeah, we're gonna have to challenge executive orders and things like that, and get rid of all of them when the 4 years is up. But as long as we can block them in the courts, and really try to like move towards a Democrat in 2028, it's gonna be okay. But with the idea that 2028 might not actually come, or even midterms, um, that's kind of where my brain kind of gets broken. And with him, like, blatantly violating the law, and because of goddamn official motherfucking acts, he can't ever fucking get prosecuted for that shit or anything like that. So where the fuck are we here? Like, do we need to? And I'm not trying to freak out on my own podcast, because really, like, I still believe all the same things to be true. That like, I'm gonna keep still moving forward with my movement. I'm gonna keep doing my activism. I'm still gonna do everything that I plan on doing. Um, I just don't want it to get to the point where I can't even do it.
Yeah. Also, sorry, my microphone died. So I had to grab my backup. I the reality is that prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That is my best advice that I can give here. Right? Is we need to be prepared for the worst possible scenario, and but also like hope for the for the best possible outcome, or whatever the best possible outcome in this situation looks like.
Okay, that's what I'm doing basically now, so I'll just continue doing that. Yeah, and I'm not trying, like, again, like, I mean, all my plans are still the same. I still have the same optimism that it could change, but I mean, if they allow him to get martial law, Izzy, it's over. Government is centralized.
To a degree, yeah. There will still be some system in place that, and again, this is something that I need to read more into as far as like the placement of martial law. So I don't know much about that, like as far as what it looks like within the confines of our own U.S. code, like what it states there. What does martial law look like as far as will it be you know will it be supreme authority given to the president? Will it be loss of elections and stuff like that, such as like in where what we're seeing in Ukraine, right? Where Zelensky essentially they're not holding elections because they're actively in a war, and that makes sense. Like they're actively being invaded. Um, um, I don't think that it would look the same in the United States as it does there, or like when Adolf put the emergency powers into play, and put the emergency powers into play in Germany. I don't think that we have that same thing in place. I would have to double check though.
Yeah, I mean, it whether or not he created the martial law, is he like Tenet 7 of fascism, create a national security fucking crisis. Here the fuck it is.
Well aware on that one. Like I'm not, again, not denying that. I'm just stating like I'm simply just saying that I'm not well read enough on it to know, like, to be able to give you a definitive answer on this one.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable. I don't have the answer either, so I can't. I mean, I'm not putting that on you to give me an answer. I'm just more upset and, just living in this fucking hell of a reality where nobody seems to care. Like, I was working the other day and, someone said I never paid attention to politics and I didn't, I've never voted. And a little part of me died a little bit. Um, because I'm just like, that's so much of the country. I can't even blame her for it because, the indifference of being out of politics because people don't know what's going on is, I've seen it too many times to like really just blame people for it anymore, you
Yeah,
know?
but again, like circling back to 2026, right? What does our best strategy look like? Get the Republicans in the seats that they're in, primaried. The best chance that we have for flipping seats isn't going against an incumbent; it's going against a new face.
I don't disagree with that, Izzy, and that's what I'm going to move towards too. And also just don't forget to call your senators. Like, tell them to fuck off
Yep.
if you have to, like 100 times a day. Just blow those motherfuckers up. Um,
But
and yeah, I mean that's the best we can do. I
yeah, but it is getting late here, so I am going to have to sign off for the night.
No,
Thank
that's
you so
cool.
much. Thank you so much for having me up here, safe.
Yeah, and just know, 8 people in the chat, that this podcast is going to be happening pretty frequently, and Izzy will be a frequent guest. I was just about to say the same thing, Izzy. So, no big deal. You sleep well, my good friend, and I will make sure to be back very soon with a new face on Safe After Dark is what I'm going to call it. So, you guys have a wonderful night. And we will see you soon.
Sounds good, man. Catch you later.